Minister, you're welcome to the House, and particularly welcome the unwinding of the FEMPI. I was heavily involved in trade unionism at the time FEMPI legislation was running through, and I remember particularly the pain that we inflicted upon our public servants in the way in which we draconianly cut their salaries. You had public servants who had bought houses, set their lives in train, and suddenly along comes FEMPI and their lives were destroyed. It's good to see that it's coming to the end. But one of the questions we'd have to ask, and Minister, you weren't in power at the time, so no reflection on you, but we saw last week, I think it was, or the week before, Microsoft returning profits of 227 billion, I think it was, through a Dublin office without paying 1 penny tax. How is that happening still? You know, this country was on its knees in 2008, and in 2012 I travelled the length and breadth of Ireland explaining to members of my union why we had to take a pay cut. I feel such a cheat now, because there are those in this country who are living a bloody good life and never ever suffered through the entire collapse of the economy in 2008, 2009 and leading on into the 10, 11, 12. I appreciate the country had to get back on its feet, but I'm afraid the pain and suffering was all in one direction. They picked the easy target, and the easy target was the public servants. I do accept today that quite a number of private sector employees lost their jobs, but the ones that stayed working, the ones that managed the vulture funds, the accountancy firms, the legal firms, they all boomed during the collapse of the economy. The move to improve sláinte care, as my colleague has just said, I think fantastic. Let's see the hospitals work better for the public. The seagoing commitment, Minister, has been a failure. We now have a naval service that has what they are referring to as the two-tier service. Because of the 3-year service requirement, you can have 2 sailors on the same ship, one who has 2-year service and the other who has 4-year service, and there's a difference in their income now. I think we're going to have to go back and look at that and see how we can rectify that, because in fact, instead of helping with retention, it has exacerbated the departures from the naval service. So that's something that needs to be looked at again and looked at fairly quickly. The restoration of pensions to public servants is a welcome measure. And in speaking about the restoration of pensions to public servants, the public servants that have no representation anywhere are the members of this House. And we are hit with Class K PRSI, which is a 2012 Act, as far as I remember, that it was brought in on, which is effectively using the social welfare system as a tax. You take 4% of our salary and there is nothing for it. TDs and senators who lost their seats in the last election had nothing to call on, nothing. Their social welfare record was broken, and as such, that will travel with them for the rest of their lives, and that is fundamentally wrong. You also have a situation where members of this House who had been paying pension contributions into a long service increment had the increment taken off them arbitrarily. I hope that that's going to be restored as we unwind FEMPI. Because at the end of the day, we are all workers in one way or another. Speaking again on particularly members of the Defence Forces and members of the Gardaí, pension abatement has been around since the 1920s, I think, or certainly the 1930s, but it had never been enacted. We now have a situation where any public servant who retires and comes back into the public sector has their pension abated. Yet we have a situation where a prisoner in Mountjoy Jail had his pension taken from him because he was a guest of the state. He was in jail. That prisoner took his case to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled you cannot touch a pension. A pension is a property right. So I am saying to you, Minister, that unless The state recognises the property rights of those public servants who had paid for and earned a full pension. Unless those pensions are restored to them, I think they will have to go to the courts and force it. I have no difficulty with the concept that I should not be able to profit by returning to the public service, but that requires legislation to be able to have different rates of pay or different pay scales. Right now, the Defence Forces are in dire need of specialist personnel, armourers, for example, artificers in the Naval Service, and they cannot get qualified people to come back. Why would they come back? They lose their entire pension as soon as they step through the gate. And not only that, they run risks with respect to the future. So I think we're going to have to look at the issue of pension abatement. A pension is a property right. Indeed, a member of this House, who I won't name, but who went to jail for improper action, there was an outcry that his pension should have been taken from him because of the money he had cost the public. And at the end of the day, the courts ruled pension is a property right. So, as well as unwinding the damage that was done to pensioners with FEMPI, the issue of pension abatement needs to be looked at, and it needs to be repealed. If you want to pay a public servant returning, a public servant with a pension returning to the public service, if you want to pay them less, then do it through the current pay rather than their pension. Their pension is theirs. And I would like, Minister, I don't expect that you'll be able to give an answer today on that, but I'd like if you'd communicate with me over the next couple of days and let me know where we stand with respect to pension abatement. It is just wrong in every sense of the word. So the seagoing commitment scheme, it was a great idea. It just hasn't worked out the way we expected. The latent aspect of it is it has backfired. So we need to look at that. We also need to look at the tax break that was made available for sailors through the last budget and see can we improve that a little bit. If we could improve that, all these things would be incremental steps that would bring us along the way. And I think, finally, Minister, we might thank the public servants, including members of this House, who took a serious hit in order to keep this country running at its worst possible time. But I'm afraid FEMPI will always be seen by those of us who worked in the public service as the most draconian measure that was set out to target those who could not fight back. And, at the end of the day, the country, we're told, is on the up again. I agree with my colleague, COVID has set things back, but the predictions are good for the future. So I would hope to see that we would undo some of the damage that was done over that period. And the best of luck with the bill. Thank you, Minister.